Okay, so we are all set. So just a reminder that we are recording. If you don't want to be on camera, feel free to turn your cameras off. Um, and we're really excited to bring back some version of Lunch and Learn, but because it's in the morning, we decided to call it a Brunch and Learn. We're going to have the same format that we did last spring, in that we'll present for 20 minutes or so, and then we'll have some time for questions and answers afterwards. So we have Chelsea Hook and Hannah Bennett, who have so wonderfully agreed to come on and talk to us about DyKnow, something I know that there are a lot of questions about. But before I turn it over to them, one thing that the coaches wanted to mention was we have two questions that come up quite often about DyKnow. The first being, I'm not able to sign on as a teacher, or when I sign on, I don't see students listed in my class. DyKnow is directly connected to Infinite Campus, and so that is where it pulls teachers and teacher rosters from. And in order for the two programs to speak correctly to each other, the primary email address for both teachers and students needs to be their school GRCSU account. So if you are missing students within your classroom, we would probably need to get in touch with the front office staff and have them go in and look at student rosters and make sure that students have the correct email address. And if you're not able to get in, we would need to go in and check to see that you have your schoolwork email as your primary address as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Chelsea and Hannah.
Hi, all. So what I'm going to just do is present so you can just see how to get on to DyKnow. I started probably using it like a month and a half ago. And let me just present. So in the upper left corner, you should see a tab that says grcsu.org bookmarks. So usually you'll have tabs up above and it should be in your left corner, and you're going to click onto that. And it's going to show Staff Infinite Campus and then DyKnow Teacher Login. So you're going to go ahead and click on that.
So it looks like we had quite a few people that were just kicked off our meet. So I'm going to give them a chance to join again.
Here I am again. So let me open up a new tab so I don't kick myself out. All right, so once you've gone to the grcsu.org bookmarks, click on that and go on to DyKnow. On my classes, it says grades 4 and 5, and it pops up for all my students. So what I can do is then just click Start Monitoring. And they're not showing up obviously right now, but they'll be all of the students' screens will show up so I can see what they're doing currently. And it it kind of updates it. It says around every 60 seconds, but you can click this button if you want to see right at that moment what's going on. Modify blocking. So say one of the students' screens is down here and they're on a website that I don't want them to be on. I can click on their screen and then a message will come up that says, do I want to send them a message? So I could say, yes, I want to send them a message, and they have like a couple messages you can pick, but you can also send a message that says, please get back on task, or please don't be on this site right now. You could also use that message as a way to if all the students are working on something in math, if you want to give them like a quick little quiz or ask to see if they have any questions. The one thing that you have to be careful with is when you send a message, it can lock a student's screen. So you've got to make sure that you click that no, you don't want to lock their screen unless you do. And if you lock it, then they can't go on to anything until you unlock it. So it's nice to be able to check in and see what students are doing, if they're on task. For example, at lunchtime, I let my kids, when they're eating the classroom, play games. And when lunch is over, sometimes some of them don't always get off, so I can send them a quick message. But the kids are aware of it. It also just helps them so that they're staying on task and doing the right thing. The other thing that is helpful when you are doing like a remote learning day, if you have a student at home that is having trouble on a task, you can go on to DyKnow and look at the screen to see what exactly they're working on so that you can help them that way too. Because I know that's sometimes hard. I mean, you can have them also present it on a Google Meet, but it's nice to be able to have that option too. Over here where it says real-time activity tracker, like right now it says 0 blocked students, so it'll let you know which ones are being blocked. It'll also give you options to be able to see what the kids have been getting onto throughout the week, so it kind of gives you data that way too. The one thing that I've noticed with DyKnow that you have to be careful of is that when it's monitoring all of your students, you need to make sure that if you have a remote student that you let them know that it is on, because you can see what they're doing when they're on their computer. So it's helpful if you need to help them. But otherwise, you know, they may not be aware that you can be able to see what they're doing on websites. So that's something you'll want to go over with them too. And Hannah, did you have anything you wanted to cover? I'm trying to think of what else.
Yeah, I actually have a couple things. So I'll present really quick. So let me go to. So if you go up here to blocking plans and click on that, you can actually make pre-made blocking plans. I use it for some older kids, so I have like a lot of things that they want to do all the time that I don't want them to do. So this is a quick and easy way you can create plans you enter websites or apps that you know that they try to waste time on, and you can just have that ready. You can either only allow them to do those things, so it'll block everything else that they might be doing beyond what you want them to do. So I sometimes let them, we have like an online textbook, so I'll only let them go online and view the online textbook, and they can't even access any other websites. It helps because I have a few students that really try to do anything other than what they're supposed to be doing. And then I took a couple of screenshots so you can see what it looks like with students in it. And in case you have multiple classes and other teachers are using it, you can see how you can steal the students back. So I opened this class and I started monitoring it, and none of my students showed up because they were being monitored by another teacher. So if you click on this yellow button, it'll pop up and show you all the students being monitored by someone else and who they're being monitored by. And then you can go click take and monitor, and it'll give you all your students back. And then over here, I showed like it turns red if someone's on something they're not supposed to be and they're getting blocked. It shows you what everyone's screen looks like, and if they're not on their computer anymore, it will tell you that they're out of the browser. That it also does that if they go on an app instead. If you can see all the websites that they're on, and then if you go up to click actually on the blocked students, it'll tell you who's being blocked and what website they're being blocked on. You can enlarge a student screen by clicking on the arrow button. This will also show up if you mouse over onto one of the students' screens over here. And you can look at just their screen. And here's where you can either send them a message or you can just block whatever they're on. If you notice they're on something, you can click on their screen and block them that way. If you don't already have a pre-made blocking plan, or you can send them a message. And I always send them a custom message, so you can type whatever you want in this little drop-down menu if you click custom message. And this is where Chelsea was talking about if you don't want to block, like close down their computer so they can't use it anymore, you want to click that no on the device lock. Otherwise, it'll lock them from using their computer and just show your message big on the screen in white letters on a black screen. And you can send the message to multiple students at a time if you want. You just have to check mark who you want to send it to. So those are all the student screenshots I took. But another thing that I found really helpful was when I go to make a blocking plan, you can modify the blocking once you're in DyKnow as well, already monitoring. If you don't want to pre-make those blocking plans, you just have to click modify blocking. And then you can turn on segmented blocking. So next to blocking, you'll say turn on segmented blocking. And you can make 2 different groups of students. So if one group is a little bit more trustworthy with what they're doing and you don't want to lock them off of everything so that they can actually go, if you're doing research especially, and another group maybe isn't so trustworthy, you can lock them down a little bit harder. And then you just click enforce it'll enforce for the whole class. And then the one other thing that I found really helpful is that you can request student understanding, but you can also send them a multiple choice question. So you can send questions out and they can answer it on their computer, kind of like clickers, but just straight from their computer. It'll pop up on their screen, they answer it, and it sends you the data right here on DyKnow. All right, that's all I have. Sorry, I talked really fast through that.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other questions? I've seen a couple pop up in the chat.
So there is a question. Lorraine was wondering, have you ever had to monitor students who are not on your Infinite Campus roster? So let's say maybe you've got a study hall or something, but those students are not on your roster for Infinite Campus. Can you do that, or have you had experience?
So for us, we have like a flex period, and we have students from multiple classes coming into one period. And I've struggled with that because you can only monitor one class at a time. So if they're not in that roster for that class, you can't monitor them. At least I haven't found a way to do it.
So
Hannah, I have a question. Can I ask a question, or do I have to type it in?
No, Brian, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, Hannah, I guess I must be doing something wrong because during math class, my kids have access to an ebook. And that's the only site I want them off. I thought I had blocked everything else, but I still have kids that are able to get on some other sites. What am I doing wrong?
So when you go to block and you hit allow only, you want to allow only that website, but then also click in the, it's split up into websites and apps. You want to click in the apps that they're only allowed on web browsers. Otherwise they can get into whatever apps they have installed on their computer.
Okay, thank you.
Some other comments. Wendy uses this, and she says she finds it really helpful to put an end time in the blocking plan because she's terrible at remembering to unblock students for the next class. So if you create a blocking plan and you don't stop it, then the next teacher who has those kids are blocked.
That's a good point, because I made a mistake like that on one of my remote learners. I had sent her a message at home because she wasn't on the math lesson with me, and it had locked her computer and I didn't realize it. And then her mom sent me an email and was like, her computer's locked. And I was like, ah, no. So that's a really good point too, especially, you know, if you're busy in class, you've got all these kids and you're trying to think of everything.
Brandon is wondering if you could show how to get to DyKnow one more time. Chelsea, I think when you presented your screen, you presented maybe like the tab, so it didn't show your bookmark bar.
Okay.
But presenting your whole screen.
All right, so let me wait till it gets on. So up here in the left corner, so here are my bookmarks that I have saved, and then up in the left corner it says grcsu.org bookmarks, and you click on that, and there it is right there. So
you want to make sure you open a different tab. I used to do that about 100 times before I finally realized what I was doing wrong. So make sure you open a different tab when you click on it.
My bookmarks are in a different spot than hers were. Mine are in those 3 little dots off to the right of the screen, and then I go down to bookmarks and GRCSU bookmarks, and it's in the same spot then. It looks the same.
I think it all depends on if you choose to show your bookmarks in the bar or not.
Mm-hmm.
When we go to blocking and it's asking for a name, are those pre-selected plans that we have set up? I'm not sure what name they're looking for in DyKnow.
So if you're not already in a class, you're just going to make a blocking plan. If you click, you're in the blocking plans, and then it wants you to give a name to your plan. So if you create a new plan, enter blocking name is the name you're going to give it. Like I name them, like I have a master for my sneaky boys that want to get on all the websites. So I named it Master for the Boys. So it's just whatever name you're giving it.
And as for that, like I'm doing that right now. I'm setting up a blocking plan where I only want, like, so that I can use it when my students are in their online textbook taking their assessments, and I only want them right there. And my textbook has, like, there are settings to not allow kids to do that, but just if I want to double up on that.
Yeah.
I chose, allow only, and I typed in the site, but what was it that you were saying about the apps?
So if you look next to it where it says applications instead of websites, you want to make sure you type in web browsers into the applications, because then they're locked into being online and not into whatever else they have on their computer.
Web browsers. Okay, perfect. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I'm not sure, or Peter, you said there's also the issue that not all the students are shown once you've opened DyKnow. Like students in your class, they're not all listed.
No, so I don't know if it's because they're on a loaner Chromebook, but I know that when I go in, when I'm monitoring during our flex period to make sure they're on Dreambox or Lexia, not all the students' screens come up on DyKnow for me, and I'm not sure why, because they should be in their Chrome accounts.
Yeah.
So Peter, my question for you would be, you said it's a flex period. Are those students all assigned to you in Infinite Campus?
They are in social studies, yes.
Okay. And do they all, when you monitor them in social studies, do they all show up?
I don't, because in social studies, I'm going around the classroom much more.
Okay.
as opposed to flex, where they're supposed to be independently learning and doing, they're self-directed, shall we say. So I'll try that in social studies to see if they all come up or not.
My other thought might be that perhaps it's on the end of Infinite Campus, and that someone would need to go into Infinite Campus and check the student information to make sure that their primary email address is their GRCSU email. Dylan asked the question, do we have to create a login? I tried signing in with my school email and it says it cannot be found. So Dylan, that would also be something that the front office staff would have to look into. They can go into Infinite Campus and look at your information and make sure that your GRCSU account is your primary email address and not a personal one. Peter, you have another question?
Yeah, so about logging into DyKnow, we had something before that, and then I guess it wasn't working. And then when the IT department found the new one, we had to ask for them to download it for us. I know it is in the tab, and that's where I go, the bookmarks. But my assumption was if you had not asked for it, you can't get in because it's already signed up. You go in via Google. So I don't have to sign in. I just have to go in via Google, and it puts me in automatically.
Yes, you would go in and you would just click sign in with Google, and that would be how it would work. It is not. It's connected to their GRCSU email account. So for instance, if a remote learner uses a personal laptop, would you be able to see if they're logged in with their school account? That's a good question. I think we would have to play around with that. My thought would be that they would have to be signed into the Chrome browser with their GRCSU account. But I think we would have to play with that.
Whenever I have students join on like Remote Wednesdays with their phones, they don't show up at all.
But so that, I mean, that could be because with our phones, we tend to have personal emails, personal Gmail accounts associated, and that would be what it's picking up. So I think that they would have to be logged in to the browser and not just logged into Google. So we'll have to play with that. I will write that down and play with it.
I had students say that when I block things on their, their DyKnow, that they were on their phone and they were freaked out that I could block it on their phone. So I don't think it matters the device as long as they're logged in.
Yeah, we can double check and get a better answer on that. And again, there's two different ways to log in. When you open a Chrome browser, you can click in the upper right-hand corner of the browser page to log into your Google account. But if you go up to where your extensions are, you have the ability to log into the Chrome browser itself. And I think that might be where the difference is. What other questions do people have? I see some questions going back about students not showing up on rosters.
Hey, Corey. This is Dawn Sarley. I just wanted to add that I know this isn't necessarily a question or in terms of tech, but I guess more in terms of like classroom management, social, emotional. This definitely adds a very intimate layer to classroom management. On a number of occasions, just you're seeing students perhaps having private discussions with other students through Google Meet or Google Hang. And I wanted to add that in terms of it's kind of like a Pandora's box that can be a little bit dicey at times. So I don't know what to kind of say further about that, but just to give folks a heads up in that realm.
Are you saying because they can still get on to Messenger and the Google Hangouts, that you mean because they're having conversations on there and having group chats?
Well, yeah, just, yeah. So, you know, it's like good old fashioned students passing notes in class, except digitally. You can see all of the, you know, Google Hangout, you know, or Google Meet interactions they're having. And it's, you know, sometimes middle school and high school kids, and it's just, I found it gets, you know, kind of dicey at times.
Well, I think what you could do, I mean, I guess, is having that conversation with your students who are getting on to Google Hangout or Google Chat, and just reminding them, you know, it's still during the school day. And if you see that they're not using it right, then that could be, I mean, Gmail could be put on the blocking plan for that period, or until they're able to show that they can use it the right way again.
Right. Yeah. I just recently figured out how to put Google Hang on the blocking plan. It did block their email, so they were unable to email, you know, a special educator if they needed to.
Okay.
So, you know, that kind of, but I always remind students, I can see what you're doing. I know what you're doing. And sometimes with the just, you know, developing executive functioning skills, it doesn't always, you know, kind of, that's not at the forefront of what they're thinking when they want to interact socially.
Sure.
But there is, you know, I know there's like just some ethical implications that we should keep in mind here.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of comments about just being transparent with students. Students should know that we're monitoring them this way. Wendy made a great point and says she only uses it during class times when she would normally be looking at their screens and what they're doing anyway.
Yeah.
You know, and I also think it's worth pointing out to students that these devices and their email accounts were given to them for educational purposes, and that's what we're monitoring. And they should not be doing things outside of those purposes, especially during school hours. But I do think that transparency would be huge.
I always give them an
Do you know if there's a way to put on a setting that students can be notified when they're being monitored? Because again, just I don't know that, you know, you can say it. I've said it a number of times, and I don't know that it's really sinking.
You could send them a message when you start to monitor, the one that doesn't block their computer, and just say, you're being monitored. Then it would pop up on their Chromebook and maybe mean a little bit more. I always make sure on virtual Wednesdays to remind them that when they're done with their work, they don't magically disappear off of the DyKnow screen. I'll still see them until class is over, because they forget that a lot.
So we have about 2 minutes left. Any other last minute questions?
I saw that someone just mentioned in the chat about students not using the Google Hangout unless it's for school purposes. And I do agree with that. But, you know, I've had remote learners and they like to be able to reach out to them. And I feel like, you know, if they're just saying hi to each other or saying like, what's up, or like simple things like that, you know, that's not much different than them saying it across the classroom to each other.
That's Chelsea, that's an administrative request.
Oh, okay.
That students should only be using for school purposes, because not just chatting with each other, especially during school hours.
So I guess I don't understand. Like if they're just asking each other questions or talking, I mean, if it's okay while they're doing it, I get what you're saying, just for school purpose. Maybe if they're asking like what's for homework, or if they have a question about something. I don't know. I mean, I'd have to think about that, because I think kids right now need that social time too. And I think we've already asked a lot of students and taken a lot of things away from them. So if this is one way that they can feel together when they can't give each other hand fives, or in summer in your classroom, then you know, that's personally how I feel about it. And I guess I'd have to look more into that.
All right, so we are at 9 o'clock, and I know that we do have teachers who have to run off to other sessions. So Hannah and Chelsea, thank you so much for doing this. I have written down a couple of questions that we were not able to answer, and we will look into and get that information out, probably via the newsletter. And of course, if you have any other questions that pop up, feel free to email any of the coaches. I'm also sure Hannah and Chelsea would be happy to answer questions if you wanted to send them an email or a chat. To get credit for this, someone asked a really great question. The form, yes, the form is linked in the modules. We will put it on the website. I will find a place to link it in several places so it is very clear. Look on the agenda page down at the bottom in like 5 minutes. All right. Hope you all have a fantastic day, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions.